He has 3 bases, I believe. He's natural. He never really established his 5 o'clock, his 4 o'clock, I believe. He does have the lower left. Now some tanks and vultures moving around very close to the inside 1 o'clock. There's an Arbiter on the way. Not really cloaking in time. Arbiter is gonna be able to provide cloaking for now, but not really too much else. Our tanks position, observers moving in also. Not seeing too many ground forces from Movie though. Probably has built a lot of zealots. Has finally a lot of dragoons moving out. Tanks finally gonna go down. This one Arbiter is really gonna help him out. I'm not seeing really any tech. No science vessels on the way for Fantasy. He's being so far focused on getting his macro up. A lot of zealots now on the way as well as some dragoons. Gonna be forced to mine clear a lot because mines going off right in their faces. A lot of observers in play though alongside that Arbiter. I'm sorry. I think I called it an Archon earlier. Arbiter in play. Fantasy adding in a crap load of factories, just going to start producing. He's very, very heavy on the vultures. Not producing that many tanks, but very, very heavy on the vultures. Movie now going to take the 1 o'clock base, so he's going to try to get on heavy bases. I believe he actually is at this point already. Has 4 mining bases where Fantasy has 3. If he manages to keep this going and get his Archon number up, he's going to be in a pretty good position because right now he's forcing Fantasy to be very, very vulture heavy. Because Fantasy only has 2 gases, he can't build too much. He's not going to be able to tech up easily the science vessels to counter these Arbiters the way he is right now. And Movie just allows himself to build up a large number of zealots and not focus too much on anything else. Has the 1 single Arbiter in play. Vultures trying to come in from Fantasy. Zealots there to meet them, but Zealots, of course, not the best troops to help against Vultures. That's some cannons being morphed in as well to help. Dragoon being... Okay, actually, never mind what I said. Fantasy has the entire time had the 4 o'clock base, just never showed it. So I never really knew if he really established it. Of course, he had it. I thought he maybe had floated the CC from there into the natural, but never mind. Both players on 4 bases, but still, only 2 gassers from Fantasy forces him to build such a huge vulture number. He has been doing a pretty good job with them, although harassing everywhere, using them very well as his main troop with some tanks to support. Also, some tanks finally going to be able to help against that harassment that's been coming at the 4 o'clock location. There's, of course, still a gateway there. If Moody should decide to build a force, he might actually do a pretty good job there. Maybe go for an Archon and blah. Or a High Templar. Actually, you could just build a High Templar, research Storm, and just sacrifice the High Templar to storm the entire CV line. Just run in 1 Zealot, storm. Great idea. Recall going to be coming in. Movie ready for recall. Probably going to get spotted. There are tanks, a lot of mines off position though. Church is going to start taking a recall. Is going to come in. A lot of forces going to instantly see going to be floated off. It's using a lot of danger. Arbiter going down though. Mines going off, killing a lot of forces. Just trying to desperately drag some mines into the forces of Fantasies. I think Movie, what was bad for Movie there, he really lost his Arbiter, ran it right into a line of 3 turrets. So he does lose that. Arbiters are, of course, rather vulnerable forces. Still mines being planted out, but Movie has done a pretty good job of preventing the space here at the lower left, at the 6 o'clock, to being taken up, but is going to be pitted out there. That attack is not going to stand on too long. Zealots now running straight ahead of mines. Mine drag's not working too well. Oh, decent mine drag. They're getting some vultures. Now Dragoons alongside an Arbiter are going to be able to move in. Second Arbiter here. Tanks going to be forced into dropships. Dropship, no! 1 single shot missing. I think the Arbiter is actually going to go hunt down the 1 single dropship. Even more forces being produced by Movie, so Movie's doing a pretty good job of macroing himself. Does have his 1 o'clock base, so it is a base over Fantasy. Fantasy's definitely, and he's done a pretty good job of harassing overall as well. So Fantasy, another recall going to be coming in. Another Arbiter. Oh, look at this. He's not letting up. Movie is not letting up. Fantasy's in a lot of trouble. And that's going to be forced to float off the CC. There are some Dragoons. Arbiter coming in to help. Because now that the Church have finally been taken down, some Zealots there to support as well. The CC is going to go down. Fantasy's going to lose 1 base permanently here at the 4 o'clock position. He has a lot of vultures coming in. Has a science vessel as well. Probably EMP'd. I'm not quite sure. I think I saw an EMP. But still, the damage is done. The Movie's just doing great harassment, still has forces all over the map, engaging a Goliath with an Arbiter. You really shouldn't do that! Run away! Run away, Arbiter, but he had another Arbiter in play. We're going to see what actually, he's going to go for another recall. Is he going to go for another, he's preparing, he's going to go for another recall, which he's going to do, probably going to recall the Dragoons. No, decides to cancel. He's talking like an auctioneer there for a second. This needs a sip of water. God. Fantasy really now in a bad position, I gotta say. Movie on 5 bases. Not all of them mining, mind you. He's mined out his mineral only at the upper left, I believe. He's done a very good job of mining out his minerals, really taking advantage of that. Fantasy now finally has a sizable force of tanks. You can see where it has enough auxiliary troops because there's a large force of movies barreling down. AMP going off on the Arbiter and a few of the Zealots, but not too much. The Arbiter, though, very vulnerable, gonna go down. We're gonna see movie has another Arbiter in location, though. Stasis, I believe a Stasis went off. Not quite sure. Stasis not seeing anything. Dragoons along that Zealot. There's the one single Arbiter, and the Sciences leaves the location, so it is gonna be a spotter. Movie is gonna be forced back. Fantasy has far too many forces to defend this. He's not gonna be able to manage to break the front. I think actually should have been able to pull out a little bit sooner. Actually decides to push out of probe at the lower left, and see whether he actually decides to take a risk of taking a base, or decides to put up something funky there. Because at this point, you know, Movie is the type of player I've seen really can do strange things. Lost an Observer there, I believe. Still macroing up, getting some Dark Templar still on the field. Lots and lots of Zealots. Tanks have 1-1 upgrades at this point, so they're still pretty strong. I'm not quite sure what Movie's upgrades are at this point. But Fantasy has a huge force that is suddenly pulled out of his pocket. Look at that. Right, pushing right down the middle. Fantasy apparently been keeping his forces. Lost all the base. This is going to be it for him. He has to do some damage with this huge army he has. Movie has a couple Arbiters, has some Zealots all over the place. Still harassing the 4 o'clock position. Fantasy is desperate to get something done at this point. He has a lot of tanks, a lot of vultures. Has to go out and do some damage. Push down the middle. Has a lot, 2 scientists to help him out. There's our Arbiters in position, though. Is going to all come down to how Movie instantly manages to reinforce with a lot of Zealots and Dragoons. Should be able to counter this if he does it correctly. Arbiter's still running all over the place. We're going to see what actually tries to go for another recall. Fantasy trying to establish a base near the middle. The middle only. We're going to see with another recall coming in. Where the Fantasy is going to take the risk of recalling. Oh, now he's running his Arbiter into a huge straight line. There is a small recall going to come in. Going to sacrifice his Arbiter to go in for a small recall. Going to start off. Our mines going off, killing a lot of SCVs actually. So a little bit bad Fantasy there. Fantasy probably not going to lose the base, but we're going to lose a lot of SCV mining at this mineral only at the lower left. And Fantasy's desperate for minerals at this point. His main is dead. He's natural in a pretty bad position. He's mining some, re-establishing his 4 o'clock mineral only, and his mineral only at the lower left. 6 o'clock is very bad too. Finally, Fantasy now attacking the inside 11 o'clock of Movies, not really mining much at all. Probably kill the probes, the probe pull off the line. But the difference here is that Fantasy has this huge sizable force which is going to engage Movie's force. Movie has an EMP goes off on Dragoons, and the Arbiter, the Arbiter is not going to have any stasis. We're going to see whether Fantasy tries to take this advantage, because Movie can actually reinforce a lot faster, but Fantasy now pushing in, has a lot of forces. He might actually do this with this one single push. He's not going to have reinforces as fast, but if he uses this push, manages to reinforce, managing to reestablish some more base, he's going to be in a lot of good position. Some Zealots coming in to take some tanks. The Movie at this point needs some forces. Natural expansion now in a lot of danger. Not a lot of danger. He's going to be forced to put all of his